It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be mine? Won't you be mine, neighbor? I would like to have a beautiful neighbor just like you. Da da da. Won't you be my neighbor? Directed by Morgan Nelville. This is the documentary about Fred Rogers, a man that was a host of a children's television show which was on during the 1960s, the late 60s till 2001. And then he died in 2003. This was one of my favorite shows to watch growing up. I loved watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers was an ordained minister, which is one of the things I didn't know that this movie tells you. He used his show to talk about love and understanding, and when he did his show, he talked to kids like they were equals. There was no subject that he would not talk about, whether it was the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, the Challenger blowing up, segregation in regards to black people not being allowed to be in the same swimming pool as white people and how ridiculous that is. His stance that he did against segregation was, one of the actors he had on his show was a black man that played a police officer on his show. And what Mr. Rogers did is he filled this wading pool up with water, because one of the things that was happening at the time is that they wouldn't allow black people in the same pool as white people. So he said, that's ridiculous. So he would take off his shoes and put his feet in the water and then ask the black actor to do the same. And it was pretty awesome to actually see that be done on television and see that being done as a stance against segregation like that. That is pretty cool. And there were many other subjects that he liked talking about. He didn't care about what the censors would say or what people would say you shouldn't be talking about. He would talk about it no matter what and try to do it in a very relatable way. He would use puppets, and the puppets he would use, like one puppet would be Danny the Tiger, or another puppet would be X the Owl, and these puppets would represent different parts of who he is. The owl represents his wisdom, the tiger represents his inner child, and you have King Friday, which is another puppet he would perform. And then there's some other puppets like Queen Saturday and Prince Tuesday. There were some puppets that were platypuses, or a whole bunch of other puppets. And the puppets were in an area of the show that was called Make-Believe Land. And this was an area where you didn't see Mr. Rogers, even though he did perform some of the puppet work. You got to go to this make-believe land through a trolley tunnel. When Mr. Rogers did his show, eventually he would have this trolley train that he would put on a track. The trolley train would go into a tunnel, and on the other side of the tunnel would be the make-believe land. This show was amazing. I like the fact that he went against the norm how to do his show, that he did it with low production quality and no real special effects, really just simple sets and everything in order to give it a good real feeling and make it easier for the children to connect to, which is awesome. And just the way he was able to connect to the children was just so good. One of the scenes in this documentary shows him talking to a child that is handicapped in a wheelchair, which was really good and really touches your heart very well. And a lot of things he did in the show did a good job of touching your heart and everything. And just everything else that he did was great. More to stand up against the system and everything, and do it in a way, because he wanted to connect to the children and talk about issues, no matter what issue it was. in a nice way, but also in a no holds barred kind of way too, and that was just great. I really liked watching his show, and the fact that we don't have somebody like him now on television, the closest we have is they have a show on television called Danny the Tiger. They took one of Mr. Rogers' puppet characters and turned him into Mr. Rogers himself. The character does the whole dress-up routine just like Mr. Rogers does, but it's a tiger and not a real person this time, so it's a cartoon character, which is cool. But at the same time, you are still wishing you could see Mr. Rogers instead. And this is just a really good show. There were very few shows that were as good as Mr. Rogers. Maybe Sesame Street, of course, was still on the air. Other shows that were on, like maybe Fraggle Rock or The Electric Company. Both Fraggle Rock and The Electric Company are no longer on the air, but at least Sesame Street is still on the air. And I miss Mr. Rogers, but I have seen recordings of the show on DVD at Target, so if you ever wanted to get the recordings of the episodes of the show, you could go to Target. And overall, I just love this show, and this movie was a great documentary. I hope this movie gets an Oscar nomination because this movie deserves one for Best Documentary. So I'm gonna give this movie an A+. It's that good. And that's all I gotta say for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Won't You Be My Neighbor?